We're going to talk about another Game 7 now, and it's pretty good because, well, not good. That's pretty salty of me to say, but it's kind of funny, let's say, or ironic that Boston lost the Game 7 yesterday, too.
I think it's good.
Okay, it's good.
Yeah. Lucky number 7 this year, man. Every single series has gone to 7 except the blowout in Colorado and the St. Louis Blues win in 6. St. Louis Blues are winning the cup, but that's a conversation for another day. What did you think about this Boston series?
I had never seen a better example of home ice advantage.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the home team won every single game. I'm sure it's happened before, but I can't remember the last time that happened. And so convincingly, Boston was unbelievable at home and a completely different team on the road. And the same can be said about Carolina. I've never seen home ice impact the way a team plays to this degree ever.
Something about TD Gardens makes that perfection line turn into the 90s Oilers.
They're a crazy team at home.
And then away from TD, they're so bad. Like, they got beat so convincingly in Game 7. I know it was 3-2, but for most of the game, it was domination. Right? They scored in the last minute. I mean, here's what I'll say. The reason why we took Boston in 7 was because we thought Freddie Anderson out. Antti Ranta's played 3 games with an 870 save percentage in the playoffs. This team has no chance.
Yeah, that's what we thought. Logically, I think.
Antti Ranta came out with a 237 goals against and a 930 save percentage. Like, those crazy. Are Vasilevsky numbers.
Yeah, he was unreal.
And he got injured halfway through. He came back off injury and kept doing this.
He did, yeah.
Right? I mean, good for them. Resilience. Yeah. Man, if the Canes show that they can beat this team, especially with the bad omens that they had losing to them in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
This might propel them to the Cup.
Yeah, I think that I think they have a real strong case to go all the way to the conference finals because I don't have much confidence in the Rangers. I've made that point a number of times on this podcast, and I think the Penguins will give them a real run for their money if they win. And if Crosby and Jarry are healthy, which are 3 big ifs.
Yeah. Here's why I think Boston lost this series. Number 1, obviously, they couldn't win on the road. And I know that seems obvious, but they didn't even put up a fight on the road. It was 3 pretty bad losses. Like, they lost like 5-1, 5-0, and then got beat pretty convincingly in Game 7. Number 2, they just don't have enough depth.
They don't.
Like, Taylor Hall, I'm sorry, isn't great anymore. Eric Hall is on the second line, and Pasternak actually played most of the series on that first line. I mean, you can't win a series when your second line doesn't score you any goals. And the third thing I'll say is, I don't know why Bruce Cassidy didn't believe in the better goalie. Like, why wasn't Jeremy Swayman playing that whole series?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think it might have just been a case of he's a rookie, Linus Ullmark's a little older. We have both of them, just start the older guy, and if he's bad, switch it up. But that probably came back to bite them a little bit because Swayman was pretty good when he went in.
Yeah, no, but so was Ullmark. Like, Ullmark had a really good end of the season, and I agree. Like, you sometimes you play the hotter goalie. They got scared that he was a rookie. But, I mean, after Ullmark got destroyed in those first 2 games, like, they gave him a third game in Boston. And granted, he won those 2 games. But those 2 games in Boston were kind of close. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think they should have rode with Jeremy Swayman. He showed it in the last 3 games that he is clearly, like, he's a gamer.
He's good.
Like, he's going to be good for them. I think if Jeremy Swayman was in that net the whole series, I think they would have came out on top because Carolina looked beatable this year. Carolina and Tampa Bay looked beatable.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, Carolina, they're a really good team, but there is something about them that you think that they can be beat. I don't know what it is, but they do kind of have that sort of vibe to them. I think maybe they proved some of their doubters wrong, but I'm still, if they had to play Tampa or Florida, it would be a tough call.
Yeah,
looking ahead. But
this series was so close, and like expected goals for 5-on-5, this team was in like 3 percentage points of each other for every game except Game 2 when it was a blowout. I mean, man, we've been pretty lucky in this first round. We've seen some very, very tight matchups that could have gone either way. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could have told me that Boston or Carolina was the better team.
No, it was a coin toss.
Yeah, and sometimes it just happens that way.
Yeah, but before we move on to the last game 7, I want to kind of go over this because you talked about Boston's depth, and there are some rumors going around that Patrice Bergeron might call it after this season. And if that happens, well, first of all, do you think it'll happen? And second of all, like, what's going to happen to this team if he doesn't play?
So I didn't think it was going to happen because, as we've talked about on this podcast, he has had the best defensive season in like the last 10 years out of any player.
He's been unreal.
Right? And he was putting up points too. Like, the guy's clearly still at like close to the top of his game.
Yeah.
This team, as long as the perfection line is still there, still has juice. Like, they still have a cup left in them, honestly.
They got a cup run
right?
in them. Yeah.
They do. So I didn't think that he was gone. But man, after game 7 last night, he was the last player on the ice, was hugging every single player that got off the ice, making it like pretty clear that this looked like it was going to be his last game.
Yeah, there was more to we just lost a series to that sort of way that the game ended.
Yeah, like he was hugging every single player on that team. Like he was like shedding tears. And I know, like, fine, you do that when you lose a series, but it seemed different. It seemed like a last farewell kind of thing.
And I had heard or read even earlier in this season there was like a sense that it was a possibility. Not that I don't even think it's set in stone now. But it's kind of weird when it's to see a guy who's at the top of his game is likely going to win the Selke again to call it quits. But maybe it's just it's been too tough on his body. He wants to retire with some quality of life, maybe, because he's had some pretty crazy injuries in his career. So maybe it's just him thinking like, I gotta think about when I'm gonna feel like 30 years down the road. I don't know.
Yeah, he has nothing left to prove or to give to the game. He's won an Olympic gold medal, as 2-time Cup champion or 1 time.
One.
Regardless, he's won a cup. He's won multiple Selkies. He's put up 80, 90 points a year. Like, he's cemented himself as maybe one of the best two-way players to ever play this game.
Yeah.
Right. He's clearly not retiring because he's Dustin Brown, where he's bad. He's just he's injury prone, and that is what it is. And you know what? Taking away my Leafs bias, like, huge respect to him. He's had a fantastic career. I think that's a guy you would be happy to be a first-line center on any team in the league.
Oh, easily.
Right? Good for him.
Easily. But this Boston team without him next year is going to be... Who's going to be their first-line center? They got to go sign somebody.
Eric Holla? Is Eric Holla their second-line center?
Is their second-line center this year?
Yeah. No.
What if they go get Kadri?
Wow. Honestly, that's a good call. I do. Or even Mark Scheifele.
Mark Scheifele, too.
How much is Kadri going to get next year?
He's probably going to make a lot of money.
Like 9? Would you pay?
He should ask for 9.
Would you pay him 9?
I wouldn't.
He's had 1 season.
But Matt Duchene got 8.
Yeah.
So if I'm Kadri's agent, I'm saying I'm not locking out of this negotiation with less than 8. No shot.
What I will say is that Nazem Kadri showed that he can put up 95 to 100 points on a line that isn't great.
And he was playing second line most of the year.
With, I think, Burakovsky and Nichushkin. And granted, Nichushkin's very underrated, but he's not Mikko Rantanen.
No.
Right? And we've talked about this before. He's actually had a lot of his points 5-on-5. So he's not even relying on that crazy power play.
Which is good.
With what happened this year, like what got released with Nazem Kadri, that op-ed that he wrote about the Leafs, that was honestly a fantastic read. He showed how dedicated he was to be a Leaf. Do you think he'd ever sign with Boston?
I mean, money talks. Like, I wouldn't be offended if he joined. It would suck to see that. I wouldn't necessarily be offended though.
I don't know, but we have seen in the NHL like players not signed for teams that they used to be rivals with, like with Marc-Andre Fleury.
That's right.
Right? I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to think Kadri signs with Boston, but like that would be the perfect fit.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. It's just thinking like, one guy's going, who's the perfect replacement? He is a Boston player.
He fits that style perfectly.
He is.
He's a Bruin if I've ever seen one, but it'd be kind of awkward for him to go in that dressing room and see like
weird.
Right?
Very
He's
weird.
2 suspensions against that team.
DeBrusque and be like, "What's up?
Yeah,
I just gave you a concussion 2 years ago."
2 suspensions against that team. I think they'd welcome him with open arms, especially because Brad Marchand is probably going to demand a first-line center if Patrice goes.
Yeah, you have to think, right? They're gonna that team will rightfully so think they can still win. So if Patrice leaves, like, you gotta fill that gap somehow.
Now that we're even talking about this, if Patrice decides to stay, why wouldn't they still go get Kadri or Scheifele? Like, do they have cap space?
I'm not sure if they do.
They could make it.
They could probably make it work. I don't know what their UFA situation is looking like, if they have contracts off the books, but I mean, if this is like, if Bergeron sticks around another 1 or 2 years, you have to go for it because you're going to suck no matter what after he leaves. So you sell the farm and go get some guys to fill in, to play in that second line. I would be kind of scared of Boston if Patrice came back, because he'd probably be coming back with some guarantees that things are going to happen around him.
That first line power play would be insane.
If they had Kadri?
Yeah.
No, they would be unstoppable. They'd be so good.
Still think the Leafs shouldn't make a move if Nazem Kadri becomes a Boston Bruin?
Make a move for...
Just to change things up. Like, do you think if Nazem Kadri's a Boston Bruin and we play them in the first round next year,
we're toast.
Yeah, we're toast again.
I love for Nas to come back. Just take $4 million a year and come back.
Yeah, okay, $4 million a year.
Hometown discount.
Honestly, move John Tavares to the wing. He's too slow to be a center. You play him Nazem Kadri second line wing. You get rid of William Nylander. There's your replacement.
Shoot.
Would you not do that?
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Nas coming back for a revenge tour would be just inject that into my veins right now.
What you could do, honestly, you could make like a William Nylander sign and trade with Colorado. And then you sign and trade Nazem Kadri to like
the 8th year.
Yeah, for like $8 million. You sign Nazem Kadri. You have a talk with JT. I think he'd happily move to the wing.
I think he would, yeah,
because he's too slow.
He is slow now,
right? But I mean, he still put up 80 points this year. He's still good enough to crack any top 6 in the league.
Yeah, and he was even great in the last 3 games of that power play. Like now of that series, like down low, he is a beast. His quads must be like 1 foot in diameter.
Yeah. I mean, damn, now that I'm thinking about it, that would be a crazy trade.
That would be crazy. But the thing is with these trade proposals, if we're so convinced that it's amazing, there's just no way the other team does it half the time. But we're in dreamland now, so we can have our fun.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. And then now, another interesting one for Leafs fans in particular is that the Oilers got over the hump this year against the Kings.
So happy to see that.
Tell us about it.
I mean, 2 words, Connor McDavid.
What a beast.
Connor McDavid, second player in NHL history with 6 multi-point games in a playoff series. 6 multi-point games. 10 points in 7 games or something stupid.
14.
14?
Yeah, 10 assists.
It's stupid. I mean, we said it coming in. If this team got the goaltending they needed, they were going to win this series convincingly. I'm so surprised LA took it to 7.
Yeah.
But do you know Mike Smith's stats in this series?
I have it here. You had like a 938, didn't you?
A 938.
That's ridiculous.
With a 229 goals against average and 2 shutouts. Apart from that first game where they lost, he'd been unbelievable.
Yeah, he is an enigma. I think because I don't even know, because I think it was last playoffs when they got swept by Winnipeg. He was god awful.
Yeah, it's bad.
And now he comes back a year older. Somehow better. I don't know. I'm giving up. He's gonna come back next year. Maybe he's gonna suck. Maybe he's gonna be good. It's impossible to predict.
Just how beautiful is it that after the Leafs lose again, Cody Ceci scores their game-winning goal last night.
That's poetic. He has 6 points. I don't think he got 6 points all of last year.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Objectively, the NHL needed Edmonton to move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, for Leaf fans, it kind of sucks because if they lost, Connor McDavid might be thinking, "Oh, I gotta get my way out of here."
I know we're gonna have some fun conversations about that, but I don't think it's gonna happen anymore.
Yeah, Edmonton dodged the bullet, but huge credit to LA for making it that far. That team has a bright young core with cap space and a good market to sign free agents. I would not be surprised if this team makes a splash in the offseason and is good next year.
Why not?
Yeah, like we talked about it. Nazem Kadri. We talked about Mark Scheifele. They need winger depth. Like Patrick Kane wouldn't want to go to LA, right? They're good. Their top 2 centers are good, so they probably wouldn't make a play for a center because who did they got? They got Deneau and obviously Kopitar. But their winger depth falls off a cliff after Adrian Kempe.
Kempe, and that's it. Really.
Yeah, Iafallo, Athanasiou.
Okay. They're all like second, third liners.
Right? I mean, if those guys go out and get Patrick Kane,
that's
in that bad division,
that would be really interesting to see them make a push. I think they will, because they're young. They're not like the Leafs, but they're young, and like the Leafs where when you add a few pieces and your young players continue to develop, you're making some good strides.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. You never want to see a player to get hurt. Like I am not, what I'm about to say is not saying like, oh, I'm happy this guy hurt. Obviously not. Really sucks that Drew Doughty got hurt. But what I'm saying is the fact that he got hurt had some unintended benefits for that team because it allowed Sean Durzi to develop. Like Sean Durzi went from playing third line minutes with Thomas Bjornfoot to playing 26 minutes a night on the first line power play, going toe to toe with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and the dude held his own.
Yeah, he was a monster.
Right? He developed into a versatile 2-way defenseman that next year when Drew Doughty comes back, they're going to play him with Drew Doughty next year. I have no doubt. I know they play on the same side. Someone's going to move, and it's going to be Sean Durzi. That first line defensive pairing is going to be fantastic.
It's pretty good.
Right? I mean, with the Kings have a lot of selling points for free agents this offseason because they showed free agents like, oh, look, we weren't a wild card team, made it, finished third in the division, took a fantastic team to 7 games. Maybe you're what we need to get over the hump and make it into the second round. I mean, do you really have to sell LA to players?
No, I don't think so.
I would not be surprised if LA makes a splash this offseason.
That's interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on for sure. But I want one more thing about Edmonton. If you got a .938 save percentage from Mike Smith but still had to go to 7 games, to me, that rings a bell is that they're a pretty flawed team defensively.
Oh, we know this team is built terribly.
We know that, right? So that emphasizes that their defense is shaky, that Mike Smith is a god, and Connor McDavid is the god of all gods. Because those are the 3 things that we probably already knew going in, except for the Mike Smith thing. But now they've just been emphasized. This team's... They need to... In the offseason, regardless of what they do, they can want to win the cup, and this would still be true. If they can find a way, I don't know how, because their cap situation is kind of messed. If they can find a way to get a couple more better D-men, they can be good.
They're going to be
deep enough now.
They're going to be more than good.
Yeah.
Right? Mike Smith is playing like a top 5 goalie in the league throughout the month of April in the first round of the playoffs.
Which is unfathomable. I don't understand how that happens. He's got to be the oldest player in the league at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Connor McDavid said it best. Like, his one quote at the end of Game 6 when they lost where LA forced Game 7, like, sums up the Edmonton Oilers in a nutshell. He said, we scored 4 goals tonight. That needs to be enough to win. It obviously wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, they need to win games 5-4 to beat the LA Kings. And I mean, granted, Game 7 wasn't like that because Mike Smith stood on his head. But all the first games were like
pretty high scoring.
The over hit literally every single time. I mean, who's their starting 6? Like, I'm sorry, Darnell Nurse is not a good defensive defenseman.
No, and he's making 9.5 starting next year.
Cody Ceci is a pylon.
He is a pylon. He's a pylon that somehow got 6 points though.
Yeah.
But granted, he's still a pylon.
Duncan Keith needs oxygen in between intermissions. And who else is on that team? Evan Bouchard,
Tyson Barrie.
And Tyson Barrie, all a bunch of ex-Leafs. Like that decor is not good enough to make a playoff. The reason why they do is they have 2 of the top 5 players in the world on that team, scoring 6 goals a night.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I think the easiest GM spot in the whole league is to be in Edmonton because it's written on the wall. Go get a goalie. Go get a stud defenseman. Sell off the Mikko Koskinen contract for a first-round pick if you have to. And this team's a perennial cup contender.
Yeah.
Right?
It seems easy from the outside looking in.
I don't know what's so hard about it. Like, it's Ken Holland still there, right? If you're Ken Holland, how do you not tell the team, we'll give you like a first and a third round pick to take this Mikko Koskinen contract and another terrible contract off our books? Because then essentially you can go sign a free agent and you're basically moving that first round pick for a stud winger, right? Or a stud defenseman. I don't know how these changes haven't been made yet. Like, how is Mike Smith still their starting goalie 4 years later?
Well, the sad part is that he tried. He got $5 million wrapped up in Duncan Keith because they didn't retain in Chicago. Then he signed Barrie and Ceci together. That's over $10 million worth of contracts.
Maybe it's just because there were no good defensemen on the market, but Seth Jones was available. Like, you can talk about whether he's overrated or not, but at the end of the day, he still logs minutes and he brings a level of confidence to a room.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even think there's any defensemen that are up this year.
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm sure there are a few, but I don't know if any like big dogs are.
I wouldn't be surprised if next year, and I know now I'm just throwing out trades, but these are trades that make sense. Correct me if I'm wrong. Edmonton Oilers make a trade where they go a first and a second and Mikko Koskinen for like Jacob Chikrin or something. That makes a lot of sense to me.
He makes a lot of sense there.
Right? It's a team-friendly deal. It works for both sides. I mean, Arizona only needs to fill 3,000 fans in that arena next year, so I don't think they care who starts in that net.
And they want to suck.
They want to suck. I mean, I can't believe they didn't make that trade at the deadline.
Interesting. I didn't really thought of Chikrin being there. They're going to have to sweeten the pot big time. It's going to have to be like for a first just to get Koskinen plus. But, I mean, it's hard to argue against doing that because you have two of the best players, like you said, in their prime
Yeah.
in the world.
And Chychrun's on term. He's on a team-friendly deal. I don't know. We'll see what Ken Holland does. Knowing Ken Holland, he's going to go out and get, I don't even know, like
some bum.
Jared Spurgeon or something like that. I don't know.